This is Mark Guerrero. Welcome to East L.A. Music Stories, episode 32. My guest is Benjamin Lopez, aka Benny Lopez. He was the bass player for the Midniters during the first part of their heyday. The Midniters, their biggest success when they were making their albums was mid 60s, And the first part of that segment, Benny was a bass player. Later, for most of that segment, was Jimmy Espinosa, but we'll get into all that. But Benny was also in some other bands before he was in the Midniters. And that's very interesting because we're getting into that period of the early 60s, I think I've only done one or two other shows that even got into that because the East Side Sound boom really started 63, 64, where there were countless bands and countless venues, but there were some bands working before that, and Benny was in one or two. So anyway, welcome, Benny. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you ready to roll?
Ready to roll.
We had a few technical problems but we finally solved. But so tell me, how'd you get interested in music? How'd you become a musician?
I actually started playing with Johnny Gamboa.
Okay.
We got a little band. We got some guitars. We had a little band that was very small. We only had, matter of fact, Jimmy was in our band, and he played the upright bass.
Who was that?
Jimmy Espinosa. He played.
Wow. Okay.
And Johnny and I were the guitar players, and we had a drummer named Danny Dominguez. And another guy played congas. I never knew his name, but we called him Bozo. I don't know why, but we called him Bozo.
I remember there was a bass player named Bozo later on, but it was probably a different Bozo.
We played around different dances. We played for graduations for grammar school. We played for Resurrection, and we played I think it was Sacred Heart. These are schools, junior high schools and grammar schools. And our band was playing many gigs that we had. And we played at the Great Western at a band battle of the bands. And later on, Johnny got a bunch of other guys. So we got some brass. And we had a pretty big band, about 8-piece band. We did a battle of the bands.
Mm-hmm.
We were the only Chicano group there. Most of the groups were white. I think we were the only Latino group, okay. Chicano group. And the people who were announcing were white, mm-hmm. The lady. And she pronounced all our names like Americans. Richard Gallegos was Richard Gallagher. She said these names like that. And Johnny Gamboa, she said, Johnny Gambler, like Gambler.
Oh, great.
We were laughing because, hey, those aren't our names. And she said my name correct. It was Benny Lopez.
Tried to get that wrong.
She didn't get that wrong. And Carlos Frias, it sounded white, Carlos Frias. And we were laughing because she said all the names we sounded white. So we started calling each other what she told us. Gallagher, Johnny Gambler, we all had those names. But anyways, we came in second place. We didn't win. We thought we were going to win. It was the first prize was a recording contract.
Oh, nice.
I don't know with who. Yeah. But after we played there, Johnny got approached by some guys that wanted to record. So we thought they wanted to record the whole Crowns, but they only took him.
That happens a lot.
Only Johnny Gamboa, and they recorded a song called "Why Lover." I don't know if you ever heard it, but it's on YouTube. If you want to hear it, you could hear it on YouTube. "Why Lover" by Johnny Gamboa. And we used to tell, but that's us, but it wasn't us. They got a nice band to back them up and voices and everything. So anyways, the song they were trying to make him a Richie Valens.
I got it.
That was their goal.
Well, the same thing happened to Richie Valens when he was in the Silhouettes. And Bob Keane went to audition the Silhouettes, and he said, I just want Richie Valens, not the band. And he just took the same thing.
Well, that's what happened to us. And well, it didn't hit. The record didn't hit that much. So I guess afterwards, they just dropped him, and we continued as the Crowns.
Hey, but let's talk a little bit about Johnny Gamboa. So he was kind of a pioneer in these East LA bands, right? He had one of the
Yeah,
first bands.
it was him and I who got together with guitars only,
Hmm.
acoustic guitars, and we used to fiddle around with the guitars. And we said, well, let's start a band. So we had to get electric. So I went to Phillips Music Company on Brooklyn Avenue, which
Yes,
is now Cesar Chavez,
right.
and bought me a white guitar. I mean, it was a cheap mark Supro
Mm.
guitar, Supro, but it played good. It was a good. I bought a little amp, and we started playing with little amps and guitars, and that's how the band got started. Then we got bigger, like I told you. Then we started doing weddings and quinceañeras.
Johnny was the lead singer, right?
He was the lead singer. We had another singer with him, Dickie Rodriguez, Richard Rodriguez. And as a matter of fact, Johnny and I talked about a year ago. We said, I wonder what happened. So we looked for him, and we couldn't find nowhere to find him. And we don't know what happened to him. But
Mm.
he was actually the lead singer.
Okay.
But anyways, I was in the band, a few years, and one gig we had at the big Union Hall, we were on the show. A group called Benny and the Midniters was on the show. Now I heard later on that they were called the Gentiles at one time,
Right,
but
right. There's a story
well,
to that too.
I knew them as Benny and the Midnighters. And after the show, Benny, Little Ray, and Willie approached me and asked me if I wanted to join the Midnighters. And I said, well, let me think about it. They said, oh, we got a lot of jobs. We got 2 or 3 jobs every weekend, and they're paying good. I said, let me think about it. So I told Johnny I was leaving the band. Johnny was hurt because we were real close, Johnny and I, really good friends. So I joined the band. I joined the Midnighters.
Now we should say that Benny was Benny Ceballos.
Oh yeah, I forgot to say.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, when they came down my house, we had first practice at my mother's house. There was no place else to practice. So we cleared out all the furniture at my mother's house. The whole band came in. And then we had a little meeting. I said, let's have a meeting. I said, look, I don't want to be called Benny and the Midnighters. We're just going to call ourselves the Midnighters. And I said, because I'm the band leader, want me to do all the decisions? Okay, so we're the Midnighters. We become a band. I changed the members. I don't want to go to a whole story of where I went through with Raleigh. He was the guitar player.
And that's
But,
Raul Ceballos, the brother of Benny, who was the
yeah,
bass player,
yeah.
and he was
And
leaving.
I just said, he didn't know too much about chords and intricate chords. So, and we were already advanced. Myself and Romeo was in the band. He was pretty advanced in music. And Raul Ceballos didn't know a lot of music. So I told the band, well, I'm gonna let him go because I know Willie and I know another bass player, George Dominguez. So George Dominguez came down the next week. We auditioned him. He was good. Got him. I got another conga player, and because I got most of my friends. Is what I did. I got him in. I got Ronnie Figueroa, conga player, and I got in George, and that was the band we started making. And then I decided to get Romeo Prado. Romeo Prado was in the band. I got him to join the band, but I told him, I don't want you to play trumpet. I want you to play the trombone. He goes, I don't know how to play a slide trombone. No, they got valve trombones that are the same fingering as the trumpet. So I convinced him. We went in Phillips Music again, and we got a trombone. So that was the sound. Larry and him made a beautiful sound.
Larry Rendon.
Larry Rendon was a sax player. He's always been in the Midnighters. So here we go. We do good shows. We did a rock and roll show. We did Land of 1,000 Dances there. And everybody said, release it. So we released it the live version. We didn't want to release the live version, but Eddie Torres, who was the manager at the time of the Midniters, he said, no, we're going to release the live version. So we released the live version. So the record came out and Cannibal came out and the Headhunters came out with the same song. But they did a good job because they were under Eddie Davis with Pharaoh Records, I think. And they did a beautiful job on the song, and their song outdid us in the national chart. I think we got up to 20 in the national, and they got up to about 10 in the national charts.
So you covered a lot of ground there in that first few minutes, but there's a few questions I have and a few comments about that stuff.
Okay.
You did mention Ronnie Figueroa, that he came in on congas, but I wanted to ask you, he wound up playing a Vox organ in the Midniters. How did he switch over to keyboard?
In my suggestion, I told him, Ronnie, can you play piano? He goes, yeah. So he got a piano, and then we started playing piano.
Okay. So the rock and roll shows that got really popular at East L.A. College started at Lourdes Church Auditorium, or whatever was at the church there. And you played there with Johnny and the Crowns, right?
Well, at that time, when I played at Lourdes thing, I switched to bass. Johnny had asked me to switch to bass, and then he let Jimmy go.
Okay.
And that's how the Crowns got started, more bigger. You know, when we got the brass in, we started getting about 8 guys in the band.
And what kind of material did you play? What genres did you play?
Johnny was into, he liked a lot of jazz. And we were playing like Up a Lazy River, Moon River, Moonlight in Vermont. We were playing, classic jazz songs.
Did you do any rock and roll?
Oh, yeah, we did. We did rock and roll in between that. I was singing all the Richie Valens songs. I was singing Come On, Let's Go. I was singing Donna. And I sang a few ballads.
Did you do any Latin kind of music, Spanish language?
Got into a few Latins when we got a guy named Baba Yella, a piano player. We got him in the Crown. And he knew a lot of music, and so we played some Latin with him. And we got a good Latin song, we got a jazz song, we got a rock and roll song. That's why we were popular.
Mm-hmm. And so were the Armenta brothers involved in that? Because they used to play at Lourdes all the time.
Yeah, they were the good band, good band. A lot of different good bands at that time.
Were they mainly Spanish language, or they did rock and roll too?
No, they were mixed like us. They did everything. They were Chicanos, but they were Americanized like us,
Mm-hmm. Do you remember any of the other bands that were on that first rock and roll show?
The Skyliners. You ever hear the Skyliners?
No.
They had a guy named Joey Chernueva, singer, Filipino guy. He went on to be in movies. They got him into movies. He was a good singer with the Skyliners.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was another band called Chico Sesma Band.
Oh, no, was it Cel Chico?
Sal Chico, excuse me.
Yeah.
Right. Sal Chico, that was his band.
Yeah, those are all the early bands. Those are the ones we just mentioned. That's the early,
And
61, 62.
There's a few other bands that were playing at that time. There was Benny Lopez was geeking around all over the place at that time. And he made it big because of Frank Sinatra label.
Right. He was playing over at PJ's in Hollywood. He got discovered by Sinatra.
And he got discovered by Frank Sinatra, and he went on to Reprise Records.
Yeah.
Big label.
Yeah, right. So when the rock and roll show switched over to East L.A. College, there you played with the Midniters, right?
Yeah, I was with the Midniters, and another maybe a year went by, and I did the show with the Midniters at East L.A. College.
Yeah, and you were telling me earlier that the way you joined the Midniters, where you were playing with the Crowns, and Little Ray and Little Willie G. And I think you said Benny Ceballos approached you and
Yes.
asked if you wanted to join the band and talk about that, how that happened.
Well, Willie and Ray asked me if I wanted to join the band. So then Benny Ceballos, he said, yeah, because I'm leaving the band, I'm getting married. So I agreed. I said, okay, let me think about it. And I thought about it for a week. A week later, I called Willie, I think, and I told him, okay, I'll join the band. I said, we have a place to practice? He goes, no. I said, well, we could practice here at my mom's house. And so he agreed. So they all came down the following week. We had practice there.
And the drummer was George Salazar, correct?
Salazar was always in the band. He was always my buddy George Salazar. God rest in peace, you know. But that's the band we got together.
So you played the circuit, you were playing St. Alphonsus and all the various Big Union, Little Union, all the usual
Mhm.
places. And you also played at the Roger Young Auditorium across the river there. And
Mhm.
there were a lot of Japanese American bands there. Talk about that.
Well, well, there was I don't know what the club was, but it was a Japanese club. They always hired us. They liked the Midniters. They always hired us, and I think another guy named, what the heck was his name? Paul Carlin. I don't know if you
Oh,
ever heard
yeah.
of.
The
He had,
ex-boxer. He was the ex-boxer who had a broken nose.
yeah, he had dances there,
Yes,
and he used to hire us.
us
One thing is
too.
we had trouble getting paid.
Oh, yeah. I had to chase him around the Big Union many times and the
He gave
Montebello
us a
Ballroom.
part. He only gave us a part, and I'd have to be chasing him, threatening him. You better pay us, or we're
Break
gonna
your
kick
nose
some.
more.
We're gonna kick some rear end. I told
Yeah.
him. I mean the other way. I
I
told him.
guess we all went through that with him.
Yeah, and I heard about him afterwards.
Yeah.
And
But getting back to those Japanese bands, so what was happening was, and I didn't even find out till 3, 4 years ago, that while our East LA scene was going on in the 60s, right across the river, right into downtown LA, Little Tokyo, there was this huge scene of Japanese American rock and roll bands. And they were heavily influenced by the East LA bands. They loved the Midniters, they loved the Emeralds. And I found out because this gentleman contacted me and he wrote a book. His name is Harry Manaka. He was a member of one of those groups, and he wrote a book called Chronicles of a Sensei Rocker. And I had no idea that there was this whole scene going on over there. But mainly, I think the Midnighters and the Emeralds are about the two most popular bands with them and
yeah,
played
we
shows
were.
with them. And I went to they had a seminar that I went to with Anthony of the Emeralds a few years ago, where they had a reunion of all these groups and they had a panel talking about the memories of all that. And some of those Japanese American bands had like one Chicano in it or one African American, but it was mainly a Japanese American scene. So I was amazed. I didn't know about it, but you guys were kind of in the middle of it.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah. But those bands, the guy told me that they used to like play Midniters songs and and play in the style we played in the East LA bands. So that's a pretty cool thing. So you played on the early Midniters popular records. You played on Sad Girl, which was
Yeah.
extremely popular. You played on That's All.
So
It's another Midnighter classic recording. And you played on Whittier Boulevard.
we
And
had a
talk about how
boulevard.
that was recorded. I know it was inspired by the Rolling Stones' 2120 South Michigan Avenue. So talk about that.
Yeah, we were practicing at my mother's house, and I liked that song. I liked the bass part. So I came in and I said, we're going to do this part. And Roy Marquez did the guitar part. So we said, we're not going to do it exactly like 2120. We're going to do it like dun, 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 throwing that
Doing
like
some
a
other
little,
stuff.
like a dance. Yeah. And then we told Robin, do like a horn. Dun, dun, then Ronnie went arriba, arriba, because Ronnie used to like to do that. So we threw that in there. And I said, okay, George, you'll take a solo. we'll end the song, and that'll be Whittier Boulevard. So we
Yeah.
just did it that way.
Yeah, the
you know.
Rolling Stones had a harmonica solo. You guys had guitar and keyboard solos, organ.
We had a keyboard. Ronnie did a keyboard solo, but it was a short song we did. It was only 2 minutes. I think the recording was 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
Where did you
I don't-
record that? Did you record it at Stereo Masters in Hollywood?
Yeah,
Because that's where you guys did most of your recordings. We did our first two singles there as well. The Mark and the Escorts, yeah.
it only took us 2 takes.
Well, of course, it wasn't too complicated, but it became a big hit in Southern California. It's kind of a regional hit, but it was huge. It was, I think, top 5 in LA on all the big stations.
They made top 5, and nationally, I think it was in the 40s. It didn't.
Yeah.
It sold probably 200,000 copies, I think,
Wow.
all over the United States.
And with the success of that, you guys started to tour a little farther outside of California, right? Talk about that.
Yeah, we toured. They liked us in Arizona and Texas, in Utah. We went to Utah, played for the Mormons up there.
Ooh,
It was quite a show because the whole show was white, And we did Salt Lake, we did Oregon also, Utah, and
I think you mentioned Colorado too, huh?
yeah, it was snowing at that time.
Wow.
We went during the winter. I don't know why we went, but we went during the winter. And I remember George Salazar's brother went with us. I think his name is
Yeah, I know him. I
yeah,
can't think of his name, but I know him pretty well. He comes to my gigs out here a lot.
birthmark on his face. So
Mhm.
he was driving the car and he went off the road because
Wow.
we didn't have chains.
Mhm.
So we're on the car and slides off the road. We didn't know what to do, and here comes a tractor, just a tractor, a guy, and he stopped. He goes, "You need help, huh?" So we got a chain, and he pulled the car out for us
Nice.
out of the shoulder. We were
Yeah.
stuck in the snow.
Southern California boys aren't used to that stuff.
Yeah. So he pulled us out. We got back, we got back on the road. We hit the motel,
Mhm.
and the next day we do the show in Utah.
Oh, cool.
Came out pretty good,
Mhm.
And then we went to Oregon, Boise,
Idaho,
Oregon,
Idaho.
and Salt Lake, Utah, and what's the other side we went to? It wasn't a
New
big city.
Mexico, New Mexico.
No, I don't think we went there. We went to Arizona and Texas.
Mhm.
Yeah, but
So what about the TV shows you did? You mentioned the 9th Street West with Sam Riddle, Channel 9.
we did 9th Street West, and we did Hollywood a Go Go.
And that was a more of a national show, bigger show.
Hollywood a Go Go was more national. 9th Street West is, I think, local. I think local and
Yeah.
maybe the whole state.
Were you in the band when they played Shebang? Remember that show Shebang with Casey Kasem?
Do that. I was already out of the band.
Okay, all right. And then let's talk about the West Coast East Side Review at the Shrine Auditorium. That was huge. And
yeah.
the lineup was the Atlantics, the Blendells, the Blue Satins, Cannibal and the Headhunters, Ronnie and the Casuals, my band Mark and the Escorts, the Heartbreakers, the Jaguars with the Solace Brothers, Little Ray, the Little Heartbreakers, the Medallions, the Midniters, the Pageants, the Premiers, the Four Queens, the Romancers, the Sisters, and the Slauson Brothers, all on one show. February 21st, 1965. I remember you for sure there. So tell me what you remember about that show. Dave Hull, the DJ, was the host, the hullabalooer from KRLA.
Yeah, we went over good there. I don't think we had done Whittier Boulevard yet.
Maybe,
'Cause,
maybe. Because I seem
I
to
don't think
recall you guys doing that bum, 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 da, 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 bum. Seem to recall
we
that.
always done that. We always done Whittier Boulevard that way.
Yeah,
But I don't remember if we had already done, yeah, we had already done Wooded Boulevard.
I think
You're
so.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do remember, because you guys, the Midnighters were probably the most popular band in East LA at the time in that whole mid-60s period. But I remember that I remember seeing you guys after the show and going out the stage door and the girls screaming like for the Beatles and all that stuff,
Uh,
right?
yeah, it was nostalgic for us,
And people used to say that you look like John Lennon. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, you had that kind of haircut. You had a nose similar. And
Um,
and
Roy
they, oh,
Buck,
he looks like John Lennon. And Roy Marcus, they called him Ringo. He looked a little like Ringo.
he had that big nose. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't do, you mentioned Roy Marcus earlier, but we didn't say too much about him. But he was this short guy, looked a little like Ringo, played rhythm guitar. And I went to Garfield High School with him. We actually did a show together where in front of the student body where he and I sang Act Naturally by the Beatles together. They're going to put me in the movies. I played guitar. We both played guitar and we sang harmony. So I knew him in high school. I knew George Salazar in high school, and Little Ray was at Garfield as well. But
Mm.
but he was a member for quite a while there, and a very popular member. And the girls are screaming for you outside the door there, which reminds me, that brings me to the Johnson's Market show.
Oh,
And let me tell you who's on that before you tell that story. Okay, the lineup there, it was behind Johnson's Market, and that's JONSON apostrophe S, Johnson's Market on Whittier Boulevard. And we all played on the back of a flatbed truck.
right.
And the lineup was Thee Midniters, the Night Themes, Ronnie and the Casuals, a great band. The Queens, which was probably the Four Queens, they were one of Billy Cardenas's bands. They were from like San Pedro, I believe, down there. And they did the East Side Circuit. The Sisters with Ursi Arvisu and Rosella and Mary. Little Ray, the Ambertones, very popular band at the time. Little Egypt, Mark and the Escorts, my band. The Blue Angels, the Counts, another really good band, and the Vandals. So that happened 1965 sometime. So you were telling me that you guys got mobbed there. Talk about that.
Yeah, we were playing on that flatbed, had you seen that flatbed truck, and the girls were pulling our leg pants, because it was such a small stage, we were small next to the edge. And we finished our show and we started getting off, and they started mobbing Willie. So I was next to him and they started mobbing me. And the girls started pulling our clothes and our hair. And we said, man, this is getting wild here. Listen, it's getting too like a riot there. So Willie and I kind of ran toward the sidewalk over. We ran down Whittier. We went into the Record Inn.
Record Inn, yeah.
Yeah.
Mike Carcano owned it.
Yeah, Mike. We we went in there and they followed us inside and they ran inside like a what do you call it? They stormed the whole store. And Mike says, "You guys better get out. You're going to ruin our store," because they were still trying to get us,
A little bit of Beatlemania there.
Yeah, it was like a Beatlemania. We got out the back and we went around and got into my car. I remember, and took off. And that was that's the whole show that was scary for us,
Yeah, well, that happened to me one time. I played at my alma mater, Griffith Junior High School, with my band Mark and the Escorts. It might have been, yeah. And I was probably a 10th grader at Garfield already, but went back to play at my junior high for an assembly during the day. And this was during the Beatlemania Hard Day's nighttime. And so after the show, and the girls are screaming, after the show, the faculty invited my band to the faculty cafeteria to have lunch. And so we went to the cafeteria, and when the kids were allowed into the cafeteria, the girls started screaming and they chased me, and I ran out the door and they chased me, about 15 girls or so, junior high kids, chased me around the building, and it felt like Beatlemania. I thought, oh, this is fun. But when I went back in the building, they caught me And like you said, they started scratching and pulling my hair and tearing my clothes. And then it wasn't fun anymore. It was scary, and I had to be rescued by the teachers. So I had a little
Right.
taste of what you're talking about at one time.
It
Crazy
is
time.
scary.
Yeah, it really, people don't realize it. You can imagine what the Beatles went through if,
Oh,
hundreds of
course.
girls did that to them. So very dangerous. So let me mention a few flyers here. Now, I made a little collection here. Went through my website. I have a big flyers collection, and a lot of people have sent me different scans of flyers. But these are the shows that my bands, Mark and the Escorts, and later the Men from Sound, those two bands, played on the bill with the Midniters. One was the Shrine Auditorium I mentioned. One was the Johnson's Market. But here's another one. May 1st, 1965, the Sisters, the Midniters, Mark and the Escorts, Ronnie and the Casuals at the Big Union Hall on 49th Street. And that was on May 1st, 1965. St. Alphonsus Auditorium. Wasn't an auditorium, it was a church hall. A teen dancing show, the Midniters, Little Willie G, the Four Queens, Ricky Shade, the Slauson Brothers, Mark and the Escorts, the Impalas Band, and the Sisters. And that was May 8th, 1965. So you were probably in the band on all these, because these were all like early 65. Let's see, here's one, the Record Inn. Do you remember playing at the Record Inn? In the store?
Vaguely, but I think I do, yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. No. You know what it is? It says the Record Inn presents a show at the
Oh.
Boulevard Theater. Do you remember playing in the Boulevard Theater in front of the screen?
Oh, that's an old, yeah. Let me ask you a question. Do you remember that nightclub called Kabuki's?
Absolutely. That was in Eagle Rock, wasn't it? There might have been two of them, but there was one in Eagle Rock, I'm pretty sure.
Kind of downtown somewhere.
Okay,
The west side.
okay,
And that's where we met the Solis brothers.
okay.
The first time they were little kids,
Oh, I remember seeing them like that.
And we said, those guys are going to make it.
They sounded good. They were like 14 and 11 or something like that when I first saw them. Yeah.
But we all said, they're going to make it. And they did.
Yeah, that's right.
Big.
Well, this show at the Boulevard Theater was Ronnie and the Casuals, the Midniters, the Sisters, the Counts, Pat and Lynn, Mark and the Escorts, Vandellas and the Legion, and the VIPs, who later became El Chicano.
Gano, yeah.
And here's another, I don't, were you on this one? The Midniters, St. Alphonsus, the Olympics, Hully Gully were on the bill. Do you remember that at all?
I did all the San Alfonso shows, most of them. There was only a few that we did there.
Yeah,
Maybe 3.
yeah. Well, but then again, at some point, Jimmy joined, so Jimmy might have done some of these too.
They done some after me, yeah.
Yeah. So this is the Olympics, San Alphonsus. This is already 66. Were you out of the band by 66?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so then these next ones wouldn't apply. But those are some cool venues. Did you play the Montebello Ballroom too?
Oh, yeah.
And the Little
Amazing.
Union?
It was so hard to get up those stairs. So.
Oh, I know.
Gee.
It's crazy. Did you go to Salesian, or what high school did you go to?
Yeah, I went to Salesian. I went only the first 2 years, and then I transferred to Roosevelt.
So Salesian had a very famous music program with Mr. Taggart. Well, do you have anything to say about Mr. Taggart and the band there? And
Oh,
what-
he was a band instructor. He knew his music.
Mhm.
He made that big band of ours a great band. You know, we didn't even sound like a high school band. We sounded like a college band.
Right. So let's talk about Eddie Torres, the manager of the Midniters. Talk about him and what he meant to the band and what he did for the band.
He got us a lot of work, a lot of jobs, and to get a story short, he made the name Midniters, Thee Midniters. It was
With the
his
different
idea.
spelling, with the different spelling?
Probably because of the Hank Ballard
Right.
lawsuit.
Right.
They mentioned Eddie and me because I was a band leader in the lawsuit. So I think Eddie got an attorney. We wrote him back that we're going to change it to the and take out the GA, so we'll be called the Midnighters.
Different
'Cause we
spelling.
were about
But
some
the
Midnight-
the was also because you guys were the Midnighters, not the Midnighters. There was a little of
Yeah.
that involved too, which was
So,
cool. And then everybody copied that. Everybody became the
yeah.
whatever.
So Eddie made the name,
Yeah. And he was
which
your manager, and he was also promoter. He promoted some of the dances, and he also started his own record company, wasn't it? Whittier Records.
Video Records, yeah,
Yeah. But your first singles were on Chattahoochee, right?
right.
And then he started his own label.
He started his own label, and he did all the other stuff and all the other albums.
How did you wind up leaving the Midnighters?
I just wound up leaving the Midnighters. I had a lot of different. The band was going different ways, and I didn't like it, so I got out of the band. But I got back in '69.
Hmm. So when you left, Jimmy took over on bass. And then
Forrest.
how did you get back in '69? What were the circumstances, and what was Jimmy doing at that point?
Roberts called me, and he told me that
Who called you?
Eddie Torres,
Oh,
he was still the manager at the time, and he said, "You want to get back in the band?" I said, "Well, let me get back in shape because I haven't played for a while." So I got back in. We kind of organized the band bigger, and we had a big band. We got a singer, a guy named Hank Castro.
yeah, I know who he is. Yeah, he's singing with them again now.
Yeah, when I got back in the Midnighters, the lead singer was Al Anaya.
Yeah, who used to be in the Impalas.
And Paula's, yes. So we played for a while, and then he left the group. So we got Hank Castro as a singer, and then we got more brass. We had about a 10-piece band, and we did good. Well, at that time, we toured with Santana, Malo, and we went Texas, Arizona. We went all over with them.
Who was playing guitar at the time?
We had a guy named Anthony Verray,
Right, from the Emeralds.
the Emeralds, yeah,
A friend of mine, yes.
and good guitar player. We had a good band, and then I got a friend of mine, a keyboard player named Jerry Santana.
Hmm.
He joined the Midnight.
No relation.
Good, no, good keyboard. But he loved to say, "I'm Jerry Santana,"
Yeah.
Make it sound like he was related, but he wasn't.
So what
But,
happened to Jimmy? Why was Jimmy no longer the bass player at that point in '69?
I don't know. He got out of the band, and then about I was about 3 more years. 71. The band kind of started falling apart, and nothing was happening. So a lot of guys went their own way, and I said, "You know what? That's it for me." I went back because I was always working in the meat business all this time.
Hmm.
So I went back to the meat, and I started working, and I said, "No, that's it. I'm not going to go back to the band no more."
So
Just
were you completely out of music for years until you started that? Were you in Midnight's Moon?
Yeah, I started Midnight Moon. I called George Salazar, and I said, "Let's get a band together." So we started getting the band together. And first we started with a bass player, me on guitar. I was playing guitar because all that time I was off, I was playing a lot of guitar. And I said, "Well, who do we get on bass?" So Tony Carroll came up. He
Hmm.
was from the Jaguars.
Jaguars, yes.
He became my bass player. And he did real good. We clicked,
Who else was in the band? So you had George Salazar, Roy Marcus, was he in the band?
I got him in the band. I got him in the band, and I had a keyboard player, which was George Salazar's nephew,
Hmm.
Lugo, good keyboard player. And then I had two sax players. One was a girl. Her name was her last name was Naila. She was from Sweden, and she joined the band because I put an ad on Facebook, and she answered the ad. And then I got a guy named Lawrence Temez. So those are my two sax players that are on the CD.
Was this probably in the early 2000s that you put this band together?
We put it together, and
Around then, right? About the early 2000s?
yeah, 204 around there.
Okay, all right, got it.
And I got a guitar player named Rick Cantu.
Hmm.
He played in the CD.
Yeah, you guys made a CD, yeah.
Yeah, so I put my money together. I had money at that time. I spent about almost 20,000 to do
Wow.
the CD.
Uh-huh.
Did it at a studio in Rancho Cucamonga,
Hmm.
King C Studios. And most of the songs I wrote the song. Did you ever hear my CD?
Yeah, I did. I had it. Somebody gave it to me.
Oh, good. Well, most of the songs I wrote, and some of them I gave to the guys that I wrote. I
Mhm.
said, well, I'll give it to George. I gave it to Danny. I even gave one to Tony, a song that I wrote. So you guys, I'll give you guys credit. So I got them all into BMI. They didn't know what BMI was. I already knew because I already had songs on BMI. So they're all writers on BMI now.
Broadcast Music Incorporated. What's your overall feeling about that time in the 60s during that really great period in the 60s when there was that huge scene in East
Yeah,
LA?
it was a
Did you
great.
enjoy it? Did you have fun? What do you think?
I enjoyed it, had fun, and whatever. We made good money. We were popular. I enjoyed all the popularity that we had. And even when we got back in the band, I got back in the Midniters, we were popular. We were playing a Palladium. Oh,
Mhm.
we forgot to mention all the times we played at the Palladium.
Hollywood Palladium.
Even when I got back in the band, we played at the
Yeah.
Palladium still, because Eddie Torres was still booking.
Yeah.
He was booking the big union all over. And then after I got out, I got my band, and I was happy with my band. But then my band, they started dying on me. Tony Carroll
Yeah.
died.
I know.
In the meantime, we're trying to get a bass player. George Salazar got cancer,
Right. He passed away as well.
passed away as well.
Very great guy.
I won my rhythm section,
Yeah.
so I didn't have no more band.
You did it and you made an album with it, and that's very cool.
The album is all over YouTube. It gets a lot of plays. I get a lot of remarks on it.
Is that the name of the album? I know the band was Midnight's Moon. Was that the name of the album too?
It is rising. Midnight's Moon is rising.
Oh,
Like
got
the
it.
moon.
Midnight's Moon is rising.
I put YZ, RYZINZ. I spelled it with Y's instead of
Okay.
I.
Okay.
Yeah. Another thing I remember now is the Midnight's Moon is being played on YouTube. And during this time, about a year and a half ago, we get a call from London. See, after I left the Midnighters, I joined a group called the Prophets, which
Oh,
we
the
forgot
Prophets.
to.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Yeah,
They were a good band.
yeah, we had a good band, and we did a song called "Just Can't Wait." And then on the flip side, we did a song by Frank Zappa,
Hmm.
"Go Cry on Somebody Else's Shoulder." So we had to go down to his office. Frank Zappa was there, and George Salazar and I went, and Dave Parsley, he was a sax player. We said, we're going to use your song. He goes, well, you have to give us a nickel for every song you print. So we signed a contract. I signed a contract. I think I sent him a check for $100 because I made a thousand of the records.
Hmm.
So that's the only thing I sent him. After that, I didn't print no more songs, no more records, and that's how it ended up. So when I get the call from London, they wanted to use the song "Just Can't Wait" of the Prophets, 50-something years later.
Wow. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
let them use it, and we signed a contract, and it's on a CD, a 3-package CD. It's called Heroes and Villains. I don't know if you heard that.
No.
We were the fourth package.
Mhm.
The Heroes and Villains. They used groups from all of L.A. They had the Doors in there, the Seeds,
Nice.
big groups, but they didn't put the songs that they were their hits. They were the songs that
Right.
would make it.
Right.
And on the cover of it, they have Bridget Bardot.
No, that'll sell a few copies.
You remember her?
Of course, French actress.
Yeah, well, she's on the front cover of the CD.
Good move, yeah.
He did a good little writing on the little book
Mhm.
of the CD.
Mhm.
It says about the prophets, and he even says Benny Lopez, who was a member of the Midniters. He
Right.
did a good little article in there.
Uh-huh.
Of all the groups, he'd had a little caption on them.
So the Prophets, when you joined the Prophets, that was still in the 1960s, right after you left the Midnighters the first time. Was John DeLuna the drummer in the Prophets when you were in them?
Always been in the prophets, yes.
Pardon me, he was?
Yeah, well, he was always in there, yeah.
Yeah, great drummer who you wound up being the drummer for the El Chicano.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I still talk to Johnny.
yeah.
He's not playing with him anymore.
Oh, I know.
He's
It's
got
been
a
a long, long
place
time.
now. Yeah.
Who else was in the Prophets that I might know? Because I know it was a good band.
Well, there was a guy named Tom Fuentes. He was our keyboard player.
Mhm.
Dave Parsley, he was my sax player. We only had one sax player on the
Mhm.
Prophets. And our guitar player was Hernandez, Bob Hernandez.
Not the
He used to
same one
do,
that was not the same Bob Hernandez was in the Romancers, was it?
that was him.
Wow,
He
good.
was in
It's good.
the Prophets, and then he went to the Service.
Mhm.
So another guitar player, the way the rhythm guitar player, he took over being the guitar player, Bill Reyes. And
Oh,
he's the one who played in the recording of Just Can't Wait.
he's the one that sent me a bunch of flyers that are on my website, maybe 20 of them.
As a matter of fact, Bill Reyes, we don't know what happened to him. He disappeared.
Well, when he sent those things to me, he was living in Arizona. I don't know if you knew that. He was in
He lived in
Phoenix.
Arizona, New Jersey, and then Johnny and I last year, John DeLuna, we said, "Hey, let's look for Bill." We were talking to him, and all of a sudden he disappeared.
Speaking of disappeared, what happened to Ronnie Figueroa, the organ player for the Midnighters during their heyday, who was on Whittier Boulevard? He's kind of disappeared, didn't he?
We don't know what happened to him. Somebody said he moved to Australia.
And,
That's the
and
last
nobody
time.
knows where he is now.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a really
disappeared.
strange case. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's great talking to you, man. It was really
Thank
great.
you, man.
I
Thank you.
don't want to end this, but I admire you.
Well,
Everything
thank you,
you've done.
man.
I've seen all your thing. I admired your dad. I
Mhm.
love your dad's music,
Mhm. It was
and,
good stuff.
especially the way he joked around on some
Oh,
of
it's
the
funny
songs.
songs, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm so sad when we lost him.
Yeah, 2005. So cool, man. Well, thanks for doing the show, man.
I really enjoyed it.
Okay, man. Thanks for doing the show, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye.